يا ربي صل على نبيك دائما في هذه الدنيا وبعد
The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam appeared in this world to carry the perfect teaching, the perfect law, and the perfect mode of life and deliver it to mankind. His life and the years to follow bear testimony to the fact that he did justice to delivering this message and explaining it in such a way that anyone can be able to understand it. In his life, he prophesied that in the circumstance of faith rising up to the heavens, a person who would not be of Arabic descent would bring it back to the ground, and thus instill it into the hearts of the people. This person was the promised Messiah and Mahdi, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam, who appeared in Qadian. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to complete what all religions came for. He came to complete religion, and the promised Messiah alayhi salam came to fulfill the propagation of that very religion, Islam. From day one, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat has focused on spreading the beautiful teachings of Islam to the corners of the world. It has done this through various methods and continues to find new avenues opening up to make this task even more effective. One of the methods, which has been in practice since the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, is to build mosques.
Well, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned various prophecies regarding the latter days, particularly concerning the dire state that Islam would be in. And in one particular narration, it is reported that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a time will come when nothing would be left of Islam except for its name, and the Holy Quran will be just limited to its text only, and also the terrible state that the scholars would be in. And with regards to the mosques, he said that though the mosques will be filled with worshippers, وَمَسَاجِدُهُمْ آمِرَةٌ وَهِيَ خَرَابٌ مِنَ الْهُدَى, that though they will be filled with worshippers, but they will be completely devoid of any kind of guidance and spirituality. But having said that, the Holy Prophet ﷺ also mentioned the appearance of the Messiah in the latter days and stated that the rejuvenation and the revival of Islam will take place through the Messiah. So with the advent of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian alayhi salatu wasalam, the promised Messiah and the Imam Mahdi, that renaissance of Islam and the rejuvenation of the teachings of Islam has begun. And Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, for the accomplishment of this particular goal, adopted various methods. One of these was that he once again re-established the true sanctity and the purpose and the spirit of these mosques. In fact, he said that the progress of Islam depends upon the construction of the mosques. And if Islam is to succeed, then wherever Muslims may be, even if they be in a very small number, they should construct a mosque.
The promised Messiah has said very beautifully that if you want to spread Islam, build mosques. And he said, and that is such a true thing, that just by building a mosque, you are introducing people to Islam. So that's a huge significance. And the thing is, that is, if you have built a true mosque, which is a place to worship Allah and it's a place to serve humanity, then you will be spreading, without taking any real effort, the true message of Islam, the true message of the Quran, the true message of the Holy Prophet. And so the most fundamental objective of any mosque is to worship Allah and then be a means of spreading the message of Allah.
In 1883, during the lifetime of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat got to found its first mosque, Masjid Mubarak. This was the foundation stone of the many mosques which were to be opened in the times to come.
Prophet Messiah alayhi salam decided to build the mosque, what is referred to as the Masjid Mubarak now. And when he decided to lay the foundation for it and establish this mosque, he received some revelation, and I will only give you one of the revelations. Both blesser and blessed is this mosque, everything blessed will be done in it. Now, this was the mosque where Prophet Messiah held Majlis Irfan, consultation with his companions, said his prayers. Masjid Mubarak was the central focus of his mission, and it's just the presence of Prophet Messiah in that masjid that was making the change. Now we have so many mosques around the world that are being as if they are extensions of the Masjid Mubarak Mosque. And it's not only in the sense that Prophet Messiah's work is being done in those mosques, but his mission is being propagated. The way he said the prayers is how the Ahmadis all over the world in these different mosques say their prayers. But even in a literal way, many of the mosques, when they're built, they bring one brick as a holy relic from the Masjid Mubarak, and so they use that in their mosque that they're being built. And this way, physically also, in a way, it becomes an extension of that mosque.
In the coming years, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat was to gain a great deal of attention on a global scale, and it was required that missionaries be sent all over the world. The missionary organization expanded, and consequently, the establishment of mosques began to spread all over the world. Wherever the community acquired a property, whatever shape it was found in, the community did its utmost to build and establish these buildings in which the name of God was to be proclaimed. From small, humble villages to major developed cities, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat began its task of propagation, and this was initialized with the establishment of mosques.
Initially, in the formative years of the community, it particularly concentrated around Qadian and in India. But it was the desire of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, as well as throughout the Khulafa Ahmadiyya, that they would think of ways to spread the message of Islam all over the world. Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, due to his great wisdom and foresight, he wanted to actually open a mission, a mosque in Berlin. And due to the great strategic geographical importance of this particular area, as you know, Europe lies to the east of it. And so if there was a mission that had been established by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, it could open the doorways for the Tabligh to go right across Europe. So for this purpose, he initially addressed the Lajna members of the Ahmadiyya community, i.e. the ladies, to raise funds for this mosque. And what you have to remember is that he was addressing the ladies that primarily were living in Qadian and in India and belonged to very simple and poor backgrounds. But despite this, their immense spirit of sacrifice, they demonstrated that they raised 75,000 rupees, which was a considerable amount, considering that time. However, due to certain circumstances, they could not go ahead with building the mosque in Berlin. So Huzur then once again addressed the members of the community and said that that fund will now be used to purchase an area in London to open a mosque there. So Hazrat Chaudhry Fateh Muhammad Siyal Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who was a companion of the Promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, in 1921 purchased a plot of land in Southfields, London. And in 1924, Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu himself came to London and laid the foundation stone of this historical mosque. And then in 1926, it was formally inaugurated. So to have a mosque right in the heart of United Kingdom was actually instrumental for the propagation of Islam. In the early years, missionaries would initially come to the London Mosque, and from here they would then be sent to all over the world for various missionary activities. It's this very premises that launched the Muslim television Ahmadiyya, and the primary benefit of this was that it projected the voice of Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen to all over the world, to every household, in every country of every continent. And this, in fact, is an emphatic fulfillment of the prophecy of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that in the latter days the sun shall rise from the west.
From Qadian, many missionaries travelled to London and from here took to their destinations. Many went straight from Qadian to their appointed location. These pioneer missionaries were sent to Africa, America, and various other parts of the world to establish the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
Hazrat Maulana Abdur Rahim Nayyar Sahab was already here in UK. He was sent, I think, around 1919. So Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih Sani Razillah Ta'ala Anhu instructed Hazrat Maulana Sahab that he should visit Africa. And basically the visit was meant to be a short visit where he would go and establish the message of Ahmadiyya, the true Islam, and he would then report back to Hazrat Sahab. So he went to, he started his tour in 1920-21 and went to Sierra Leone first, and he established Jamaat in Sierra Leone, and then he went on to progress to Ghana, Accra, and then to Lagos in Nigeria. As Jamaat has progressed, even after when Hazrat Maulana Sahab came back to UK, the establishment of the growing numbers of people into Jamaat required that there must be a place of worship, right? And in Africa, it is a strong, in the Muslim population of Africa, it's a strong sort of connection that if a person wants to go and pray outside his home, it has to be a mosque. Yeah. So the Jamaat actually started establishing mosque. I mean, there were wide varieties of mosques, so, small, medium size, large, and some even were sort of just like a patch of land cleaned and half walls, and the kalma written on a high wall. This was like the mosque, but they were everywhere.
In the United States in 1920, our first pioneer missionary, Mufti Muhammad Sadiq Anho, came, and after visiting a few cities where he established some missions, he started his work in Philadelphia, for example, and then he went to Detroit, and even a place which was a suburban area of Detroit called Highland Park, Michigan. But eventually he established himself in 1922 in Chicago and bought a house. And then he renovated it to the extent that to make it look like a mosque, put up a small dome up there and a couple of minarets. And that place is known as Sadiq Mosque because everybody knew that missionary Sadiq was there. So it just started referring to it as Sadiq Mosque. Actually, we have not been able to find any document or paper where anyone named it that way. But since 1922 to this day, the people in that area, the public, all the Ahmadis, everyone refers to it as the Sadiq Mosque. And Sadiq Mosque also became the national headquarters of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community up until 1948. So that's a 26-year span that Sadiq Mosque was the center, it was the national headquarters. All the main activities of the USA Jamaat were being held in the Sadiq Mosque.
All this happened at a time when the Jamaat was not fully established internationally. Funds were provided from no specific pool or reserve. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih would launch an appeal as and when a mosque was required. However, after the establishment of Tariq Jadid in 1934, the funding for these mosques, among many other things, became streamlined. From this time onwards, the Jamaat saw things happening at a much faster pace. This new wave of progress brought along the establishments of mosques globally.
In terms of the whole continent of Africa, if you start from the west to the east, starting from Gambia, Gambia has, mashallah, extremely nice structures of mosques. On all that coast of Gambia, Senegal, coming down into Ghana, Nigeria, smaller countries like Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso, they have abundance of mosques, and every year there is a project where they build 5 to 10 mosques every year. And in small villages, in larger cities, mashallah, we've got very large mosques catering for thousands, and small mosques for small villages, mostly sort of, in the suburban sort of areas and rural areas. Then moving on to Congo. Congo, we have, I think, in Congo, Kinshasa, there was a mosque in Kinshasa, although the conditions there are very sort of, hostile. It's a police state. So then moving on from there to, if you go to the east coast of Africa, eastern side, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, there are a huge number of mosques and hospitals as well. Mosque, particularly in Mombasa, is very famous. It's a big mosque. The mosque in Kenya, the mosque in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, is very old, and it's been recently refurbished as well. When I was there twice, so I saw the transformation as well. In Uganda, the old mosque in Kampala has been totally refurbished. Apart from there are mosques in all of their regions. In Sierra Leone, I must mention there was a mosque which was literally on the top of a hill, where you could only walk there. And this mosque is very beautiful, standing on the top of a mountain, and you can see the entire view, and people can see the mosque. So all in all, when we see sort of in Africa, I think generally, apart from handful of 1 or 2 countries, in all the countries, like I said, if you want to pray and if you're traveling, you'll definitely have an Ahmadiyya Mosque and the Muslim Mosque nearby, and you will never have to sort of say your salat elsewhere, because there will always be a mosque close by.
Now, I came to the United States in 1966, and there were just about 3 mosques at that time in the United States. It was the Fazl Mosque in Washington, D.C., which was purchased in 1950, which actually then became the national headquarters for 44 years until the Baitur Rahman was built in Silver Spring, Maryland. So it was Fazl Mosque in Washington, D.C., Sadiq Mosque, of course, in Chicago, and the Dayton Mosque, which was built in 1972 actually, but the place was there before. In 1982, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV, Rahimahullah, also suggested a 5 mosque plan to the Jamaat. And Hazur instructed that we should make a plan to build 5 large size mosques in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Detroit. These were the 5 cities that he picked. So Jamaat started to work on that. And from 1982, we started to buy properties in those areas. Now in Washington, D.C., of course, the land was purchased in Silver Spring, Maryland. And then 1994, the mosque was built under the supervision of our late Amir, Mia Muzaffar Ahmad Sahib. And it was inaugurated in 1994 by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV. Then in Los Angeles, construction started in 1987. In 1989, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV Rahimahullah came and he inaugurated the mosque. Now, of course, this mosque has been renovated since that time in 2008, because in 2003 there was a fire there which kind of damaged a good part of the mosque. So actually it's not just renovation, but it's like a brand new mosque that was built there. And now Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the Khamis Ayyadullah bin Nasr Aziz also visited that mosque for the first time in May of this year, in 2013. Now in Chicago was the next where a mosque was built. We had a 5-acre property there, and in 2004 the construction was finished, and our Amir Jamaat, Dr. Ehsanullah Zafar Sahib, inaugurated that in April of 2004. And then Detroit Mosque was finished like I think is in 2010. Which is also a large mosque. Now most of these mosques that we are talking about, Detroit, Chicago, Washington, and so on and so forth, these are like good sized mosques, 20,000 square feet or more. They can handle more than 1,000 people, worshippers. So these are good sized mosques, and that was the plan. So alhamdulillah that Jamaat responded to the desire of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV.
100 Mosque scheme was launched by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi on the occasion of the Germany Jalsa in 1989. And to commemorate the centenary of the Jamaat, Hazur said that he wanted Germany to be the first European country in which there was 100 Ahmadi mosques. And so there was actually at the time Hazur gave an example. He said it's going to be very, very difficult, financially speaking, to make 100 mosques. But the truth is that if you think of a father, sometimes he holds something and his child thinks that he's actually holding it, but underneath is the father who's supporting, and the child is just trying his best. Hazur said in the same way, when the Jamaat tries to raise money and tries to build these mosques, they're like the child, and Allah Ta'ala will be supporting them, and it will be Him who will help them to attain these major goals and objectives. So mashallah, over the next few years some mosques were built in Germany, but most notably Beit Sabul, which became the national headquarters of the Germany Jamaat, and there was a mosque built in there, and then more than 50-60 offices. And that Beit Sabul in Frankfurt actually has the honor that whenever Hazur travels to Frankfurt, which most years he stays there, and it's the residence of Khalifatul Masih, and it's also the center for the Jamaat for all their activities, the Khudam, Lajna and Atfal. And one interesting point that Amir Sahib Germany has often said is that the Promised Messiah actually had a vision or a dream of receiving 2,000 keys. He said that Amir Sahib tells that there were so many offices and buildings within Beit Sabul that when they acquired this place, they were given more than 2,000 keys. And so in that way, it was one way in which you could say that dream was fulfilled. Then over the next 10 years, there was some mosques built, but it was slow progress, I suppose you would say. Then when upon the election of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis, he rejuvenated and reset this scheme, and he said the Germans must fulfill this desire of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi. And since then, mashallah, they've worked very, very tirelessly towards this objective. And every time Hazur goes to Germany every year so far in his Khilafat, sometimes more than once, they always have mosques that are being opened, they always have mosques that are being inaugurated. I think one of the most notable ones of the Khilafat of Khamsa was the 2008 Berlin Mosque. And the reason for that is the history behind it, that in 1922, Khalifatul Masih Sani said that he wanted a mosque in Germany, and he wanted in Berlin, and he wanted it to be built by the Lajna, because there's a concept in the West that Muslims oppress their ladies. So he said that this would be a beautiful way to show that the Ahmadi women have dignity, they have power, they have financial means. And actually, the Ahmadi women responded to the call magnificently. There's a narration of one Ahmadi lady who didn't have any money. She lived in poverty, hardly was able to feed her children. She had one goat, but she sold that one goat, which was the means of subsistence for her children, so she could raise money and donate to this fund. As is known that for whatever political reasons or whatever, it could not be built at that time. And so the money was transferred to Fazl Mosque in London. But then in 2002, the Lajna Imala of Germany requested Khalifatul Masih Rabi that we want to build the Berlin Mosque and fulfill that initial khwaish of Khalifatul Masih Sani. And he accepted it graciously. In 2006, Khalifatul Masih Khamis went and laid the foundation stone. And then in 2008, Hazur, during the blessed Khilafat centenary year, was able to go and inaugurate the mosque. MashaAllah, the Beit al-Fatuh project was started in the mid-1990s by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi. He expressed his desire that there's a need for a much bigger mosque in London, which could work as a centre for the Jamaat as well. And so the land was of Beit al-Fatuh, which is where we sat today in Modern, was purchased in 1996. And then in 1999, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi himself laid the foundation for this mosque. And then it took quite a long time, and so it took a period of 4 years for the mosque to be completed. As we all know that in April 2003, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi passed away, and so it was not completed in his lifetime. And it was left to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis to open this mosque on the 3rd of October 2003. This mosque was the gateway to many other mosques in the UK, because from this mosque, after that, there was a new era where mosques were built routinely by the UK Jamaat. The next year in 2004, the Dar al-Barkat Mosque, a very big mosque, was built in Birmingham. Then there was, in 2005, the Nasser Mosque was opened in Hartlepool. Then in 2008, the whole Jamaat throughout the world was celebrating the Khilafat centenary. 2 mosques were opened, the Bradford Mosque, Al-Mahdi Mosque, very, very beautiful mosque, and Beit al-Afiyat in Sheffield, also a very beautiful mosque. Hazur went to inaugurate them. There was a need for a mosque in East London as well, a new mosque. So in 2010, the Beit al-Ahad Mosque was opened by Hazur. And then if we fast forward a couple of years to 2012, that was a very significant year in the history of the UK Jamaat, because within a period of just 2 months, from February to April, 6 mosques were opened in the UK, all by Hazur. 3 of them were in the London area, which were the Tahir Mosque in Catford, Beit al-Wahid in Feltham, and Beit al-Amal in Hayes. And then another mosque opened in Hillzone, which is near Birmingham. The Hillzone Mosque is actually Beit al-Ghafur. And then finally there was a mosque opened in Manchester, Dar al-Aman, which was a very large mosque where Hazur delivered the sermon. And wherever Hazur went to those places, he used to not only speak to the MDs and remind them of their duties, but he also used to speak to the local people and address them in English and tell them that with this mosque, there's no need to fear Islam, but rather it's now our duty to protect all of you. And this mosque is a house of sanctuary for all of you.
The Ahmadiyya Muslim community, under the guidance of the Imam, it continues to endeavour in this regard, establishing mosques all over the world. And we see Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen travelling far and wide, giving the due importance to the opening of these mosques. And the message is always very clear and very simple, and that is that our mosques are open for everyone. People, irrespective of which faith they belong to, from all walks of life, they can come into our mosques and they can learn about Islam. And at the same time, Hazur instructs and urges the members to come together and congregate for the worship of the one true God. And this is the beauty of the Ahmadiyya Muslim mosques all over the world, that each of them is acting like a beacon in its own right and projecting the message of true Islam all over the globe.
God's name is exalted in all these mosques 5 times a day. This is not all. These mosques are becoming a source for people to witness the true Islam, that Islam which reigned over the world with its peace-inspiring message. Just recently, the supreme head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed, may Allah be his helper, inaugurated the Jamaat's 2nd mosque in Spain. That land, the glory of which is a tale of the past. However, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat laid foundations of reinstating this lost glory back in the early 80s. This is a process which is still continuing to this day.
Zindabad, oh Zindabad, Zinda oh Payandabad.
This process of establishing mosques has been ongoing for the last 124 years and gains momentum with every passing day. It is a sign of the blessings of Allah and is something we pay homage for. These are the blessings of Allah which we proclaim.
Ahmadiyat, Ahmadiyat, Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Ahmadiyat, Ahmadiyat, Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Zindabad, Zindabad. Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Zindabad, Zindabad. Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Ahmadiyat Zindabad. Ahmadiyat Zindabad.